So it's been about a week now since I did my last recording, and that one was to show you the spring growth, how far it had come. Well, since then, it's shot on a pace, really. It's really got going. So what I thought I'll do again is come around the garden again, and then maybe you can refer back to the old video that I did last week and see just what the difference is. I won't go into as much detail this time, though. I didn't show you this before. This is one of the sorbuses, and it's the Chinese row in this one. It's called Scalaris, and it's more of a smaller, maybe flat-topped sorbuses is the best way I could describe it. But it's a really nice one. Everything else is going. We've got Camasias that have really shot on now. And there they are. I'm not sure if it's Lectulinii. I can't be 100% sure. I just don't know. I can't remember what I got. It could be Camasia Cooksii, but I don't know. Here we've got the Allium Summer Drummer, and they're doing really well this year. They're really going for it. They're doing really well. Now I've got an Achillea here. Now, not a lot of people will know this one. This one's called Chrysocoma grandiflora. So it's Achillea Chrysocoma grandiflora. And it does your usual Achillea type heads, white in this case. It's quite nice. Grandiflora suggests that it's going to be some big leaves, which it is. And that's really nice. And what else have I done? Oh, we've got Clasia bulgarica since last time I came out. This one's going now. That's a white kind of thistle head that comes off that one, and that gets to about 5 foot or thereabouts. I've had 1 or 2 shrub moves since I last did the video, and this one here, I'm trying to think which one it is. This one's it's the Persian hardwood in it. It's Parotia. So this one's Parotia, and it's called Persian Spire, and I tend to like more upright types, and so it is with this one. I like this one because I like the thinness of it, and that's just starting to come out into leaf now. So that's Calamagrostis Waldenbush, doing really well. That's grown since last week as well, quite a lot. Now this is Viburnum Burkwoodii, and it's the Park Farm hybrid one, and it's getting its flowers ready to come out, but they're not there yet. But they're there, and when they do come out, this has the most glorious scent of any viburnum, really. Well, a lot of viburnums have a wonderful scent, but that one does in particular. This is called the Generous Gardener. It's a Rosa Generous Gardener. It has lovely colours to start with. Look at that. That's a stunning colour. Then it tends to go more greeny, I guess, before producing its flowers. And this is doing quite well. Now, last week, I think I gave you the wrong name. I'm sure I did, because I've looked back on the video, and I'm sure it's not what I said it was. Yeah, Helen von Stein. That one. Helen von Stein. And it's got, or it had last year, and I pulled it off last week, didn't I? It suffered mildew last year, and I can't understand why it did that, because it's in a lovely open area where it shouldn't really be a problem. But it was. But that's a really nice one. It's a Stachys, and it's the lamb's ears that you'll all be familiar with, but this is a little bit more of a special one, and it's definitely better than the ordinary one. As you know, I tend to go for the more unusual ones. So, Digitalis. This is Stewartii that I mentioned last week, and it's a perennial, and it's virtually evergreen. And here's all the new growth going. And I said there were some babies, and there they are. I'm going to collect those at some point. And we've got the Strantia. This is the Jill Richardson one. And with the Strantias, and you really have to be careful with the Strantias because they are very, very prolific. In fact, there's a little baby one there. I never spotted that one before, but we'll try and lift that one. But there's lots of little seedlings around all over the place. And I tend to go for the more dark colours, so the deeper colours. Is that a deeper colour there? Yeah, I think that's a deeper colour, that one there. So I'll probably keep my eye on that. Select that one out. Any you don't select out, take them out, remove them, because you'll have way too many. It spreads around like wildfire. Now I've decided finally that I am calling this the Nook. Kathy still wants me to call it Nobby's Nook, but I'm going with the Nook. I mean, it's really nice. I love this. I was sat down here earlier, just whiling away 10 minutes. Nobody knows you're in here, so it's really good. And this is the view I get. Well, let's try and shade the sun off of it. So that's the view I get. It's really nice. I've still got a lot of development in this particular area for the plants. I'm waiting to see what does well, and that's going to take the next year, and then we'll edit it at that point. Now this is Viburnum cinnamomifolium, and finally it's flowering for me. I think it said a flower a couple of years ago, but one single flower. It wasn't really establishing very well, but it's establishing now, and it's going to flower. Now this one is a bit like David Eye on steroids, and it gets to about 7 foot. That's going to be a really nice one. Now I've not had this one before, so I'm just waiting to see what it actually does do. But I've seen mature specimens of that, and they are wonderful. I love them. Now I've got Anamanthale lesoniana there, the old steeper rundinaceae. And to be honest with you, you'll find that a lot of yours in your garden, in England anyway, that if you've had some real bad frost and that, it might have killed some of them. They are quite hardy, but this year mine seem to have been finished off quite a lot. But you need to be really careful before you actually decide whether it's dead or not, because often these things aren't dead as we think they are. And there we go. I don't know if it's coming yet. It's coming through on here. So there's some greenery in there, and what I shall simply do with this one is just trim it back and let that green take over, and it'll be fine. So we're just waiting for the ferns to wake up, and they will. A matter of time. Now this Acer, and I don't know where the label is for it, I'm trying to remember its name. I'm actually going to lift this little Acer because it's a more domed type, more sprawling, and I want to put it into the new cow feeders that I've got at the back of the house. I'm intending to lift them and take them there. And this is a view I get from within this area. So I tried making it secret, and I wanted it to be the secret garden, but as I said before, it's neither secret or truly a garden in most people's eyes. It's not, but it is in mine. It's lovely. I love it. And we get some wonderful views from within here, and often people don't know that I'm around here. That's why I sit down there. Sit down that section rather. I sit down there, nobody knows you're there. It's great. And once all these actually grow, these shrubs, it'll be brilliant. This is Lanissa Anitida Bagginson's Golden. When I first came here, it was about 1 foot high, and it was literally 2 or 3 sticks, and it's done really well. And it does grow really fast. It's really good if you're trying to create a quick edge. Only downfailing is that it grows that quick that it can tend to be a little bit floppy, as in it wobbles around like mad if it's exposed. So you need to clip it hard and keep clipping it hard till it establishes a more secure sort of framework, rather than it just growing up as a stick and coiling over. You're better off trimming it often through the summer and just keep doing it. And that's what I've been doing. That's why it's got such good height. I mean, it's 3 foot now, maybe 4 foot, and that's doing really well. I've got Elaeagnus here. It's Elaeagnus pungens maculata, and it's a little bit on the tender side. It's not tender, it's hardy, but it's not as hardy as most. But I really like this one, but it has the downside that it reverts terribly at times. and it will go back to green in sections, or as new growth comes, it tends to be green. Not all of it, just bits and bobs, but it's really annoying. I'm waiting for this Grassy to wake up, but this one seems to take an age. It has done for the last 2 or 3 years, taken forever to wake up. And you think it's dead, and then all of a sudden it just pops out the leaves. It's the paperback maple, as you can see from the trunk there. This area, I've done a little bit more work in it, not too much, really just gone through with a cultivator and just broke up the soil. And I've been reassessing it. Now I've been throwing lots of turf down here, as you can see, because I'm lifting paths and all that kind of thing, because I want to change things here. And it's got like a grassy bank there, and I quite like that. I quite like it. And they were just thrown there. And the only downside is, if I'm going to keep that, I'm going to have to either use a strimmer to cut it, or just leave it alone and just cut it once in the year. But we shall see. So the red spears, as I pointed out last time, these grow really quickly at this time of year, and they're a little bit quicker than they normally are. You can see them in there, and not as red as last time I showed them, because it was fairly cold the last time I videoed. And the colder it is, the redder these things go. But as they get going, they become green-leaved. They're very fast. And that's Miscanthus lutaria riparius. And that's doing all right. Doing all right. So there's lots of stuff that is not up yet. It's coming. It's there. But it just takes a little bit longer on some of it. And we just have to be patient. This is a Daphne I got off my mate. And I don't know if he watches this and he sees this. He'll be flabbergasted. It's absolutely rubbish, and it has started to produce some more leaves, and it's trying to flower there, but I'm afraid it's probably going to have to go. It's really not doing it. It does not like it here at all. So it may have to go. This is Erysimum Bolesmore that I talked about last week, about when I did the cuttings. And as I said, and I forgot to mention that what happened, because I didn't really fully describe what actually happened. What happened was, I took the cuttings and I told you all to place them aside and look after them. Don't forget they're there. Water them from time to time and wait for them to develop roots. And what I did was I put it aside and I put it under one of my benches, and I completely forgot about them. I left them, just completely forgot. And when I finally did remember, probably 2-3 months later, they had been getting a little bit of water. They'd been struggling under the conditions they were under, and so I lost a lot of them. But 3 of them did survive, and this is one of them. Now, I said last week I should really take that flower off, and I should take both those flowers off and give it a chance. And I'm going to leave that for a little bit longer, and then I'm going to go in and nip out those flowers. I know it's a shame to do it, but I need to do it for the benefit of the plant. When you're putting new stuff in, always, if they've got flowers, always try and remove them if they're just small plants. This pulmonaria was already here when we got here, and I don't know which one it is. I think it might be one called leopard. Obviously the leaves need time to get going, but it's flowering now. It's starting to flower, so it's looking really nice. And I really do like those. Good for a shady position. And if you're looking for shade again, look, this one here is Tyrella. And it loves it. It loves to be. Is it purpurea? Tyrella. I think it's the red form. The flower, that is, not the actual leaf. I'm trying to remember what the full name is. I think it's Tyrella cordifolia. But anyway, whatever. It produces a more red flower, and it's a really nice, guaranteed plant. Really, it'll do really well. So it's not flowering yet, but it's good for a shady position. Good for a dry shady position as well. And I could do with more of it, to be quite honest. So this is the shack, still looking good. I love this shack. I mean, I put so much time into this. So much time and effort. And it was well worth it. Especially on days like today when the sun's shining. So it's really nice. We get some nice views from up here, as I've pointed out before. I had a bit of a mess around with this area yesterday. I've clipped the little hydrangea a little bit. I've done a little bit of pruning today on that, not much. And then the honeysuckle behind it that I talked about last week, I've actually moved it a foot this way because I've got a fern the other side of it now called Osmundo regalis purpurescens, and I really like it, and I can't show you anything of it because it's still a stub, but it's going to get exactly the conditions it wants because it has a bit of a water. In fact, let's just show you so that you know what I'm talking about. As you know, at the moment I'm not editing my video, so it's a one take as far as I'm concerned. So I've got this old dustbin. This is one of the very old dustbins that we used to have. These are the modern versions, which I did have there, but it sprung a leak. So all the water that comes off the shack now doesn't go in, it just pours all over the place. But I'm using this to water the plants that need it down here. Now the Osmundo regalis, there it is. It's just there, so it's not much at the moment, but it is a brilliant spot for it, to be quite honest, because it's getting the shade it wants, and it's going to get the overspill from that, because it will overspill. And then we move the honeysuckle, which is there now. It was just where it is now. It was here, and I moved it in favour of the Osmundo regalis. But to be quite honest with you, these two are way too close together, because, as I said, I think this has come from one called Honey Baby, and it's more of a shrubbing honeysuckle. So it's more like a shrub than it is a climbing honeysuckle. And I wish to keep it that way, so I've got to keep clipping it hard to keep it into that shape. Whereas the hydrangea, which is quercifolia, so the oak-leaved hydrangea, that could make between 6 and 8 foot without a problem. And these two are just going to get in the way. Now I've got some Corylus avellana cuttings, or when I did the Corylus avellana cutting, I kept hold of all the branches that I cut off, and I've put them under there. And I've put them under there for the wildlife and for hopefully hedgehogs to find them and make some sort of a home. I've arranged them a little bit better than it appears there. And we'll see what happens. Well, this is... And I ain't shown these much, have I, really? This is the 28mm copper tubing that I reclaimed from an house where they were being thrown away. And rather than go to the scrapman, I took them. And then these rings, they were used in a nursery originally, but we don't know what they were really used for. But what I've done is I've sat them on top of that, because Elianthus augealis gets to 7, if not 9 foot. So I intend to feed them through that ring to stop them falling. Now, one of the problems with these types of Elianthus is that they can flop, and they don't flop in everybody's garden, but I know that this was a bit of a vegetable gardener, and it's probably got some really good nutrients in it. Now, these types of Elianthus would definitely like a more moisture type soil, and they grow better. Now, one thing I did find out with Elianthus salicifolius, which is the Afghan elm one, was that one year I watered it and kept watering it, and every week I was giving it about 5 to 6 gallons of water, and it never once flopped. So actually, that tells me that it prefers to be in a very wet section where it'll get the most from that, and then it probably won't flop over. So I'm going to do another experiment this year and water that profusely as it grows. Let's see how it does. See if it'll go through there and not actually flop. But if it flops, we're ready for that. Wildlife area is looking good. Still like this. I think this is going to be a success of the back end of last year when I built it. Hopefully it will be. And as I said, this is the Rhium palmatum. Look how well it's doing. It's a stunner. Now that will turn more green as it goes along. And I can't truly say whether it's Tanguticum or Purpureum. There's one called Purpureum. And then there's the ordinary one. Now these leaves do turn green. And it holds purple or red underneath the leaves as time goes on. But it's been a baby for the last 2 years, but now it's getting bigger as a clump, so hopefully it'll show itself. Now I was hoping for it to show its flowers last year, and then it would have given itself away, but it was shine, didn't flower, so I couldn't tell. I've got some cracking views in this garden and it's deliberate. Because I want people to walk around, stand, turn around and just look back and get these sort of views, because you don't realise until you stop and look just how many different views there are here. Now, I said I'd move the Persian ironweed earlier, and I've also moved this. Where the Persian ironweed is now, this was actually sat there, and this is Pittosporum tenuifolium, and it's one called Garnettii, and it's more variegated, and I said before, it tends to have this colour on the leaf edges when it gets cold weather, and that will dissipate and it will go back to more of a creamy colour like this one here. It'll turn more like that as the summer goes on. But one thing it doesn't like is being in cold blasting winds, and to be honest, it was up the back there near to the front end of the van, and it did suffer. So I've moved it because it's definitely going to be better suited here. And it is an evergreen, and it won't get as much of that wind down here. It will get more heat down here, and it should do really well. The downside is I'm probably going to have to move this Pinus, which is a Mugo type. I'm going to have to move that at some point. I'll sit with it for now, though. Now, remember, I took some cuttings of that plant there, which is a reed, really, and you can see the green now. It's starting to produce the green. Let's see if I can get a picture of it. I don't think I can. Let's just show you. So there you go. There's the leaf, and this is a Rhododendron macrophylla. Macrophylla meaning that it has big leaves, and at the moment they're only tiny. This is a tiny cutting that I did last year. If you look back in my videos, you'll see me doing just that, showing you how you can take cuttings from the side stems. Now, I am going to move this. This is probably going here. I don't know yet, this grid. I don't know. We'll see. I've left it there just for now, and I keep looking at it and deciding whether I'm going to drop it into that gravel. Just something different. And I wanted to keep it as like something further up the garden, up the back end up there as a crossroad type thing. But I quite fancy having it here. I think this is Starlight Symphony. Yep, this is Starlight Symphony, this rose. It's a white one, it's doing quite well. Really nice. Its downside is it only has one real flush of flowers, but that's okay. Now that's the one I showed you last week. Spotty Dotty. It's looking really good. Podophyllum, Spotty Dotty. And remember, I was going to put it here last week, but typically, completely forgot. Planted a hosta right there. So I nearly dug that hosta out, but I didn't. So it's ended up here because it'll be just as good here. It'll like the conditions, and actually it's really come to life since I put it in the garden. It's next to an Astrantia, that's Muriel's gift, and also next to that Euphorbia, which I know I go on about this one, but I just love this. This colour will not remain like that. It'll actually go back to more of a green colour as it grows taller, spear-like. But what it will do is at the back end, it will again take on some of those colours on the newer leaves. And if memory serves me right, if every time it produces a new leaf throughout the year, it will be that colour as it gets taller. And then you just simply cut it down, and voila, that's what we get again every year. Now this is rhodiola, and I was told it's rosea, and I think it is because it's got the little tips of red. I got it off a friend, and she says it's rosea. So let's hope it is. Let's hope it is. Okay, so that's rhodiola, rosea. The geraniums have settled in nicely now. They're doing really well. They're settling very well, in fact, better than I expected them to. But we've had a lot of rain, haven't we? A lot of rain. Here's that euphorbia, and I'm convinced now it's whistleberry garnet. I was hoping it was going to be one of the wolfenii. I found one or two around, but that's not. That is definitely whistleberry garnet. It has more of a softer look about it, softer feel, which you don't know until you actually see it in the flesh. We'll keep it in there because it is a runner, but that won't stop me from keeping it in the pot. There's another Elianthus there, salsifolius, and I've decided this year that I'm doing the same trick as I've done up the garden. I'm putting this structure in so I can feed it through, because it was very lax last year, and if you go back on some of my videos you'll see that, how lax it became, but it will definitely grow higher than that section there. In fact, I should say it'll be about there by the time above it, by the time it's finished growing. So it'll look really nice. Just thought I'd come and have a look at this section from here. Oh yeah, it looks really nice. I can't wait for that Rian palmatum to just get going and do its thing. Just need it to get going, and it'll not be long. But the problem with it is, if we get some late frosts, they can tend to knock the young leaves if we don't protect them. And you've got to know whether the frosts are coming in so you can protect them. And as we know, the weathermen don't always get it right. Well, let's hope they tell me in time this year. There's the floating deck, and I've done a little bit to it. No work on it. Oh, well, worry. So I've put another cow feeder here, and I will do a YouTube on how I'm going to fill this up and plant it up and what I'm going to use, because as you can see now, it's in shade from sort of maybe 2, half 2, 3 o'clock in the afternoon. It becomes very shady. It gets a lot of sun in the morning, so I've got to be mindful that I need plants that are going to do what I want them to do. Things are away again here. As I said, things are growing up fast now. That Phyllictrum I showed you last week is doubled inside. That's Phyllictrum Ellen. It's looking really nice. There's lots of stuff in here. I've got lots of little alliums, and there's Allium spherocephalum, there's Molinias, there's the Japanese anemone down here, anemone honouring Jobert down there, and then there's a Calamagrostis grass there. That's away very quick this year, those. There's other bits and bobs not yet showing. So what I've done here is I've put that Yucca rostrata, the pointy one there. I've planted it up, I've clipped the leaves back. This is what I do, this is what you should do if you've got this. I take all the green sections, really I could have left on, but they were all dead on the ends of the leaves, so I decided I would nip them back. And the dead sections below, they were all hanging over the pot, and what I've done is I've put them back into this pot. I like this pot, it's a lot nicer. We've got another Pittosporum there, that's Margaret Turnbull. Not as hardy as the rest. I was going to get rid of it, but we've decided we will keep it. We will put it here, or we'll put it in a more protected area. We're going to keep it in the pot, or I'm going to keep it in the pot, and we'll see what happens with that. But the whole floating deck, I really like. I've had a lot of nice comments about this, and I do like it. In fact, I love it. Absolutely love it. And it's doing really well at the moment. Oh, I say it's doing well. What do I mean it's doing well? It really looks good. And it looks good from all the angles. So I've been busy down here. This is where I put all my stock plants and bits that I sell as I let people come into the garden and sell bits and bobs to them. But I've got myself a miscanthus collection going here. So all these big pots all the way around here are all some variety of miscanthus. And I intend, because I can't put every miscanthus in the garden I've got, I intend to put them in bigger and bigger and bigger pots to bring them on so that you can see the true beauty. And within 2 or 3 years, I'll be able to show you the difference of the miscanthus. A good one to be looking for, if you can find it yet, is one called Memory. If you look back in fact, I've done a short on here that if you look at it, you'll see Miscanthus Memory blowing in the wind, and it's beautiful. And that's the very one there. I've actually split it in half and then split that half in half again. And there's the other half, or half of the half. So we've got other plants growing in here, not showing themselves yet. Everywhere there's a stick, there's a plant. The late season perennial. So I'm not too worried that we're not showing those at the moment. Oh, eventually I've took out Rosa Moisei. I've had a look. The root system doesn't seem to be performing. It's still alive, but it just doesn't seem to want to wake up. And I think that there's not enough feeder roots on it. It's either something I did, or there's just something wrong with the rose. Who knows? It's the first time I've ever used the stuff you put onto the roots. Big waste of time. Never done it before. First time I've done it. First time I've had a failure. I don't know if there's a connection. Could be me. So what I've done is I've got this one. This is Rosa Dublin Bay. It's very slightly scented. It has a lovely red flower, better than the label showing. It's a lot richer than that, more velvety. And I'm going to grow that up here with the hope that Moisei will start to grow again. And then we'll put Moisei with it. But Dublin Bay will do kind of the same job anyway. But I wanted Moisei because it has those lovely massive hips later on in the year. And it's a species type, the Rosa Moisei. So I like species roses. They're definitely my favourite. Now, if you've not had a Cuba japonica before, and it's not just this type, it's also the Pittosporum, they produce a very, very tiny flower that nobody takes notice of, and often they're scented, as in smell. They have a nice, there we go, I'm trying to look for the flower that I spotted earlier. It's so tiny, you can only just see, if I lift up that leaf, there it is, look at that dinky little flower. Now, if memory serves me right, a Cuba has a bit of a scent. Pittosporum definitely does, but they produce these pretty insignificant flowers. And generally, when they produce a small flower like that, they do have a good scent to them because they need the insects to come in and pollinate them. And they're that small that the insects don't find them, so they're looking for the scent. I'm assuming that's what they do. So the Betula's doing okay. I've done all the trimming up I want to now, and I've said before, you need to get these trimmed up before the sap starts flowing because you can bleed these to death. So I'm quite happy with the way that is at the moment, and it won't need any more pruning at all usually. We'll see what happens once the leaves come out, but it's doing well. So the path's still not done. This is definitely still going to be a path. I've had so much else to do that I haven't been able to get to this section yet. I had to concentrate on the actual nursery area to get the grasses cut down and repotted and so on and so forth. I think this is, it's either, oh hang on, there's the label. Oh, it's Buckshaw Blue, this one. It's beautiful. It's a beautiful blue type, so that's Buckshaw Blue. And that's going to look really nice. That's a hosta, by the way. This is Taxus Baccata Standishii. I mentioned this last week. A very small grower. And that's how far down I've got to go to level off this section. And I've actually not only got to go that low, I've also got to lift this area up a little bit, this side. So I'm almost cutting and filling the grass. So here's the, I really need to move this bloody plant pot. I've been seeing it from up at the house and it's doing me head in. Let's move it. There we go. I'll tell you what, I'll sit it on that fence. Let's see how long it lasts there. I bet it'll still be there next week. But anyway, I needed to show you this. Another reason for doing this video again. Look how much growth we've got on these. This is Calamagrostis, Acutiflora, Carl Forster. Remember, sterile. And it's a designer's dream. It has a very upright form and produces wonderful seed heads that last forever. They go through different phases, and we'll show you those again as we go through those phases this year. I'll show you it every year, but I'll show you it again this year. And between it, the bigger, taller stuff, that's the allium. These ones here, that's Summer Drummer. And it'll send up a massive, tall, big allium in summertime. And very effective inside. And I've just spotted the other Phyllictrum Ellen, and I didn't really get close up, did I, last week? Let's get close up to this one this week. There you go. Look at that. I just love it at this phase. It's really, really nice. If you're going to get a Phyllictrum, see, when it gets to this point, this is the point I can rip away these stalks, because I know where it is now. I'm not going to dig it up by mistake. But if you're going to get a Phyllictrum, that's the one to get. Phyllictrum Ellen. And it's a beauty. It really is. It's a tall one. It's a lovely purple, very small flowers again on top of itself, and it's just a stunner. I'll show you that as we get going, and it's going to look so effective against that decking. Okay, we're going to have to end this because we're at 35 minutes. Congratulations if you've made it to this point. You've done well. This is Persicaria polymorpha. What's the other name for it? It's got a couple of names, and it's just starting to grow. And it's cracking. Believe it or not, it'll fill this whole thing out. Remember, I had Eupatorium in there, Eupatorium Gateway, and it was doing well, but I've moved that since then. In fact, there they are, those two stalks there. That's Eupatorium Gateway. In fact, there's 2 or 3 in there. And they're going there because they'll be better suited there. And they have a scent, remember. Eupatoriums have a scent. People don't realise that. It's a purple flower with a lovely scent, and it attracts butterflies, it attracts bees, mainly bees. The bees will never keep off it. So Eupatorium, get yourself one. There are some smaller varieties. Yeah, so that's going to be quite big. That's Persicaria, and that's going to be white. The only downside is I think that it smells like fox's pea, that particular plant, in my opinion. Got some Aquilegias here. There was always here. I've never planted one Aquilegia in this garden. Found a white one, which I quite like, and I like the coloured ones. There are some very tacky colours, as I'd say. Some horrible colours, and I find those and pull them out immediately when they show themselves in flower. Okay, so we're working on this area a little bit. I won't go on too much on this area at the moment because it's still new. And it just divides the nursery area. Really, that one. And I've got 1 or 2 lovely things in here. It's another Elaeagnus called Quicksilver. It will become a big shrub, that, and I'll really need to give it some control. And we've got Rosa rugosa, which I absolutely love this form. This is another wild rose. I love it. It has a lovely scent, lovely purple flower. Then we have some miscanthuses here, and some species Symphotrichums, but you can't see that yet, where that stick is. And 1 or 2 other plants, and I shall add to the mix as we go on. Don't show this area very much, and you can see why, because it's a right mess. But, you know, it is what it is. We all have these rough areas, and what I do every time I dig out some more turf, if I haven't got a place up the garden, I bring it here, put it onto here, and there's some turf on the left there that's been there for 2 years now, and that will be beautiful, friable soil under that, full of nitrogen, so it'll be really good. Here's the other Corylus ovellana. Kept it. I've got some trimming up around here, but I'll leave that for the wildlife. Just leave it alone. It's not hurting me. Kathy thinks it should be removed, but I don't believe so. So there we go. Let's give you that view. It's a lovely night tonight. Some lovely clear skies with those little fluffy clouds. It's looking really good. Like I say, this is my nursery area. That's been done. In fact, let's go into the greenhouse before I end this. Okay, so this is Miscanthus again. When you get memory, that's the colour it has. It is actually more pale green as it gets going. And this one, just by keeping it in the greenhouse, it's shot up 6 inches in its fresh growth, whereas the ones outside are probably half that. But I shall save that because it may go somewhere else in the garden. Who knows? And there's Rosa moisei we talked about earlier. It's now potted up and it's in some good stuff with some root growth accelerator in there. And let's hope it works. I don't know. Okay, so once more, again, I'll try and end the video. If you've made it to this 40 minutes, well done. Give yourself a pat on the back and go and buy yourself a Milky Way. Okay, I'll talk to you on the next one. Ta-ra.